Come in, my young wardens. Take your seats, settle your cloaks, and leave your whispers at the door. Today's lecture begins with the foundations, what magic is, how it moves through the world, and why wisdom must always stand before power. You may be young, but you wear the calling of wardens now, and I expect you to conduct yourselves accordingly. Curiosity is welcome, carelessness is not.
I expect every young elf present to pay attention.
It has been my observation, across years far exceeding those of any living scholar, that misunderstandings concerning the nature of magic proliferate more rapidly than sound instruction. Many speak of power while knowing little of its origin. Many attempt working without understanding the currents they disturb. Even among the wardens and veil keepers of my own people, knowledge is too often inherited by tradition rather than examined with the clarity our age now demands. The purpose of this volume is plain. It is not to inspire, nor to console, nor to embellish. It is to record with as much precision as the present state of study allows the structures, sources, and governing principles of all known disciplines of working. I have undertaken to gather here the foundational material that every augur, warden, scholar, or practitioner ought to possess before attempting any art, whether subtle or forceful. Those without the gift may also find within these pages a more accurate understanding of the world they inhabit, for the currents of power shape the lands and the lives of all beings, not solely those trained to perceive them. Readers should not expect ease. The matters addressed are complex, and several sections require patience to comprehend. I offer no apologies for this. Power is not made simpler by our wishes, nor rendered safer by ignorance. Understanding is the first safeguard, and the only reliable one. Without knowledge, no true art can be achieved. With partial knowledge, disasters arise more readily than insights. This work, therefore, proceeds from first principles, the Leylines and the world's manner, the means by which power may be perceived, and the many divergent practices that grew from these same sources among elves, humans, and the lost peoples. I have refrained from speculation where evidence is insufficient, though I have noted the boundaries at which inquiry presently fails. It is my hope that others, long after my own labors have ceased, may press further where I cannot. The world's workings rest upon structures older than any court or kingdom, and the consequences of misapprehension have proven severe in every age. Let this book serve as an anchor for those who seek to work with the currents rather than against them, and as a record for those who will one day inherit the stewardship of our fragile and enduring world. Foundational terms required for all readers. Before we proceed, certain terms must be understood with precision. These words are foundational to all that follows. Their meanings are older than any language spoken today, and their misuse has caused more confusion than any other flaw in the study of power. The common vernacular speaks of magic. The proper study does not. Leylines. The creative power of Iro, still present in E. More simply stated, they are the residual flows of creation itself, still moving in raw and unshaped forms across the world. Every discipline, whether elven, human, or otherwise, arises from some manner of perceiving or interacting with these currents. Mana. When the creative power of the Leylines is drawn into the fee of a being, it becomes mana. This is the internalized form of power through which a practitioner enacts change within Ea or within Ambar, whether in the physical realm or within the domains of spirit and perception. Sama. The capacity to hold mana within oneself. It is one of the chief limitations that governs all practice. Though often spoken of casually, the measure of a person's sama determines the scale and safety of any working they attempt. Kerwi. The art by which mana is applied to effect change. It is the proper term for what common speech calls magic. All disciplines, from illusion to evocation to healing, are branches of Koei. Precision requires that we use this term, for it describes not wonder but method. On Leylines, with the foundational terms established, we may now turn to the Leylines themselves. They have been present since before any record, written or spoken. No tradition claims to have discovered them, for they were known to the first minds that opened within Ea. They persist as deep currents that move through the world, remnants of the act by which Ero shaped Ea and the medium by which creation continues to inform the substance of Ambar. Though often spoken of as pathways or rivers, such metaphors are insufficient. Leylines are a living continuity between what was wrought in the beginning and what still unfolds. The deepest strata of these currents descend into the vast flows of E's own fear. From that source all Elven fear rise, and to that source they return at the end of their years. This unity between Elven being and the inner life of Ea is the principal reason that Koei is so often intuitive among my people. What humans describe as talent, elves experience simply as alignment with what surrounds and sustains them. The nature of the human fee differs greatly. It does not originate within the circles of Ea and bears the imprint of a source that lies beyond our present understanding. This distinction accounts for the marked differences between Elven and human arts. The origin of the human fee is beyond the scope of this volume, yet the consequences of its nature will be examined in later chapters, for human practices reveal patterns and dangers unknown among elves. The visible movements of the Leylines across the lands of Ambar follow patterns that appear irregular to casual observation. Some lines rise and fade, others are stable across centuries. Only in the rarest locations is one wholly beyond the reach of a line sufficient to cultivate mana. Even so, those with great sama may find such regions limiting, for the most demanding workings require fixed points where the flow is both strong and steady. The project of mapping the Leylines in full has consumed more labor than any work attempted since the shaping of the veil. Records from mundane observation, combined with augury where permissible, have narrowed the uncertainties, but have not resolved them entirely. The currents of creation do not yield their secrets readily. Boundaries shift. Points of crossing appear or vanish over time. The task remains ongoing. One matter must be stated with clarity. No practitioner, regardless of training or intent, is permitted to alter, divert, or impede a leyline. Such attempts violate the most fundamental bounds of Koei and have led to calamities in every age. If the penalties imposed by courts are insufficient warning, then let the law of Ero be understood as the final deterrent. Leylines are not instruments of mortal design. They are the framework upon which all life within Ea depends. Elven Illusionary Praxis, from Cantrip to Veil, Scale, Manifestation. The principal form of Elven Koei is what the common vernacular names illusion. The term is imprecise, yet it endures among those who do not practice the art. In truth, the workings described here are applications of Koei that act chiefly upon Ambar rather than upon Ea. Through them, the practitioner shapes perception rather than substance. Minor influences upon wind or water may accompany certain workings, for these mediums accept impression readily, yet such effects are supportive rather than central. They should never be mistaken for the essence of the art. Illusionary praxis is most effective when employed with clarity of intent. The proper uses are 4 in number: misdirection, to draw attention away from what must be protected; concealment, to obscure what must remain unseen; disguise, to present what is not present; overwhelm, to disrupt the senses of an adversary. Each mode demands precision. Any anticipated form can be cast aside by one whose will is stronger than the image imposed. Thus, the practitioner must cultivate unpredictability. There may come a moment when your life depends upon the ability to place before another mind a form that cannot be foreseen. The surroundings must be incorporated whenever possible. Illusion that disregards its environment risks dissolution. Illusion that draws from what is already present attains stability. A shifting glamour woven only from thought will fail under strain. One that guides the light of a mist already rising from the ground will endure. This principle is the first lesson taught to every novice of the Hive court, and the last lesson even the most experienced must remember. From cantrips to moderate workings. For elves, the drawing of mana is natural. The fear aligns with the flows that underlie our lands, and the simplest workings require little instruction. One must hold in the mind not a passive picture, but a form to be conquered. The image must be carried with firmness until it takes shape. Even elven children create minor illusions without realizing that they have done so. Their minds grasp at forms instinctively. I recall a young student whose hair shone red as early autumn. She possessed a lively curiosity and little patience. For several days she found that an apple appeared in her hand whenever she wished for one, yet each fruit dissolved before she could take a single bite. Her frustration grew to the point that she declared the art fundamentally flawed. Only later did she understand that she had succeeded beyond what was intended. She had shaped the appearance but not the substance, and in doing so had demonstrated precisely the strength of her own perception. Beyond such trifles lie the moderate workings. These alter not only an object, but its surroundings. A single figure may be concealed. A room may be made to seem larger. A quiet glade may appear as though covered in early frost. Sound may be adjusted. Distance may be misread. With care, one may guide an entire company along a path they believe they chose freely. Such workings require disciplined mana flow and constant attention to consistency. Illusion must align with what the senses already expect, or it will falter. The Veil, a working without equal. The greatest illusion known in the histories of any people is the veil that surrounds the Elven kingdom. It is a semi-permanent working, anchored in the strength of a central ley line and maintained through several casting points of exceptional power. One such anchor is myself. I speak of this not to elevate my own labors, but to caution those who will read this and imagine such a working to be simple. It is not. The veil is a vast ring that encircles our realm. To those who approach from beyond, it presents a storm of shifting winds and changing forms. The trees appear to move in patterns that defy reason. The land seems to fold upon itself. Fewer than 1 in 1,000 who attempt the crossing reach the inner side. Most are turned about without realizing it, and emerge again from the very forest they entered, no matter how many times they attempt to penetrate the boundary. A smaller number are lost within the storm. They encounter winds that disorient, paths that fracture, sounds that lead them astray. Some do not survive. This is a sorrow we bear, yet the safety of our people must stand above all individual misfortune. The purpose of the veil is protection. It cannot falter. The casting of the veil required nearly every elf within the kingdom. The maintenance of it continues through the efforts of the wardens, a dedicated order trained to perceive the weakening points in the working and to reinforce them before they fail. Many who read this volume will join their ranks. The responsibility placed upon them is great. To travel to a weakening point is to move toward danger, for enemies seek such places with relentless resolve. Yet the duty is no different in principle from that borne by soldiers of human kingdoms. They guard with steel, we guard with curwe. The veil endures only because countless wills hold it steady. Those who give their strength to it do so in service to all who dwell within the forests of Velatasia. Let every practitioner remember that even the greatest illusion rests upon the smallest points of discipline. On the predictive disciplines, Augury, Hauspaux, Aspex, and related methods. Predictive work is among the most demanding branches of curwe. It requires the sustained drawing of mana in quantities that often exceed the natural reserve of most practitioners. Even those with strong summer find their strength taxed by these workings. The currents of fate resist intrusion, and the mind that seeks to read them must bear considerable strain. The ley lines that underlie these workings reach not only through ear, but through amber, where the flow of time is neither constant nor uniform. The practitioner touches currents that move differently from the moments we perceive. Some hold that the intentions of Eru I Ero for the shaping of the world are carried within these deeper flows. This belief is ancient, yet its truth remains uncertain and lies beyond the scope of this volume. Whatever their origin, the Leylines bind the present to what has not yet come to pass, and it is this binding that predictive disciplines attempt to read. The practice itself demands deep meditation. The mind must be stilled until stray thought ceases to press upon the weave. The environment must be chosen with care, for the shape of the land, the quality of the air, and the purity of the light affect the clarity of the working. During the attempt, the practitioner must maintain a continuous drawing of mana. Any lapse invites distortion or collapse of the vision. The environment exerts great influence upon predictive work. The shape of the ley lines, the stability of the air, and the quiet or unrest of nearby spirits affect the clarity of a vision. A working performed near the heart of a ley line may reveal a pattern with sharpness, yet if the flow is disturbed by storm or conflict, the same working may falter. The gift required to practice these arts with reliability is exceedingly rare. In several centuries, I have known only a handful who possessed a natural affinity for perception beyond the present. Even among these few, none may employ the art without cost. Fatigue of mind and spirit, difficulty distinguishing vision from memory, and lingering shadows of what was perceived are common afflictions. Augury. Augury is the perception of immediate or near arising circumstances. It concerns the next moments rather than distant futures. Practitioners perceive subtle signs that reflect the unfolding of the present. The discipline is widely known, but true mastery is uncommon. Its value lies in practical foresight. A single moment of insight may avert danger or reveal opportunity. Hauspaux. Hauspaux concerns the reading of deeper patterns within the weave of fate. It reaches far beyond the present moment. The strain is correspondingly greater. Only those with exceptional sama can attempt it safely. Its visions are rarely literal. They appear as allegory or symbol, and interpretation demands long experience. Even the most skilled cannot guarantee accuracy, for the future shifts in response to will, choice, and the countless unknown influences that move through ambar. Aspex. Aspex seeks not the future itself, but the influences that shape it. Through Aspex one may perceive pressure upon the weave, hints of intrusion, or the emergence of a force not yet manifest. It is the most abstract of the three disciplines. Many who attempt it find themselves disoriented, for the mind grasps at threads that do not correspond to ordinary perception. Aspex is invaluable for understanding the approach of danger, but it must be used with restraint. Long use of any predictive discipline, even by those gifted, bears a heavy price. The fear may grow thin, the mind may cloud, dreams may be disturbed by echoes that do not belong to the sleeper. Practitioners must exercise caution and seek counsel when their strength wanes. The dangers of overuse are real and have claimed the well-being of many who once shone brightly. No vision is ever certain. The future is shaped by action and by inaction. Those who work within these disciplines must remember that their purpose is guidance, not control.
I speak these words at the request of Thalanor, who believes that one who walks the paths of sight should speak to those who may one day attempt the same journey. I do so willingly, though the telling stirs memories that do not rest easily. The predictive arts are neither gentle nor kind. They do not open themselves to those who seek them with eagerness. They open only to those who move with patience, humility, and a willingness to be changed. When I first felt the threads of fate brush against my thoughts, I believed that clarity would follow. Instead, I found that every answer revealed new shadows and every path carried sorrow as well as hope. Time behaves strangely when one walks these roads. Each step another takes may appear before my mind as if it were a stone falling into still water. The ripples do not vanish. They echo through the unseen places. A word spoken in anger becomes a sharp break in the weave. A choice made in kindness glows like a small fire against the frost. Yet even these signs are uncertain. They shift when touched. They vanish when assumed. Nothing remains fixed. I have learned that sight is a burden. My own vision was taken from me long ago, burned away by a moment of great terror during a vision of the cataclysm. I do not grieve its loss. What I perceive now is different, and in its own way far clearer. The threads gleam before me as faint lines of frost. They whisper in voices that do not belong to any living tongue. They change when I breathe. They change when the world groans beneath a weight we cannot name. Students often ask whether these arts may be taught. I answer that the techniques may be shared, but the gift cannot be given. It is born within the fee and shaped by the world around it. Even among the Riva, where the gift once flourished, only a few remain who can look beyond the present without falling into darkness. The craft demands time and silence. A single working may require hours of preparation. The auger must still the mind until thought no longer presses against the weave. Only then does the future open. Even so, what appears may be confusing or fragmented. One must listen with care. One must rest after each attempt. To ignore these requirements is to invite ruin. I offer a final counsel to all who seek these arts. Do not hope for reassurance. The weave does not comfort. It reveals truths that do not yield to desire. Yet even in the coldest visions there is a small thread of light. Hold to it. Let it guide you. Though the paths before us are fragile, not all lead to sorrow.
I thank Serial for her words, which arise from long experience and from trials that few could have endured. Those who study this chapter must remember that predictive work is never to be taken lightly. Whatever is seen must be received with restraint. Nothing observed may be spoken without care, and nothing written may capture the fullness of what appears in these visions. All warnings must be taken seriously, yet not with despair. We face the future not to flee from it, but to meet it with clarity. Let every practitioner remember this. Sight does not command fate. It prepares the spirit to walk toward it. Applied Thaumaturgy and Restorative Practice. Chapter 4. Healing Through Curve by Thalanor Quellethir, Chief Veilwarden of Velatasia. Applied Thaumaturgy and Restorative Practice. Healing is among the rarest gifts granted to my people, yet it is also the most gentle and the most quietly treasured. Those who practice restorative curve do not shape the body directly. Matter belongs to Ea, and its substance resists alteration by any but the greatest workings. Instead, the healer turns to the Fia, where influence may be applied with far greater clarity and far less risk. The arts of restoration do not replace mundane treatment, they supplement it. A wound must still be cleaned and bound. A fever must still be cooled. A broken bone must still be set with care. Yet when curve is applied alongside such treatment, the results are often remarkable. By steady guidance of mana into the Fia, the healer may calm fear, quiet pain, steady the mind, and strengthen the resolve of the patient. Once the Fia is restored to balance, the body follows in its own time. What appears outwardly as swift recovery is, in truth, the natural process of healing, accelerated by the harmony of inner and outer being. The practitioner must understand the limits of the art. Kerway cannot close a wound, knit flesh, or halt bleeding. It cannot restore life where life has departed. Its strength lies in alignment, not in alteration. Even so, its influence is profound, for the fear governs the will to endure. Where the fear falters, the body weakens. Where the fear is supported, the body regains its strength. It is a matter of some regret that the gift appears so rarely among us, yet those who possess it carry a responsibility that few others share. They must practice with patience. They must observe without haste. They must offer their art freely, for the work itself brings quiet reward. The healer strengthens not only the wounded, but the world around them, for each life restored strengthens the harmony of Ea. Let those who hold this gift use it often, with humility and with care. The Atlantean Gambit. Chapter 5. On the Seizure of Arcane Power by Thalanor Quellethir, Chief Veilwarden of Velatasia. The Atlantean Gambit. On the Seizure of Arcane Power. In the earliest ages, Kerway was known only among the Elven kindreds. This exclusivity was not the result of secrecy, but of nature. The alignment of Elven Fea with the currents of Ea made the art accessible without force. It is therefore unsurprising that other peoples, observing the effects of these workings, came to desire the same capabilities. Among them, none pursued this aim with greater intensity than the Atlanteans. For many centuries, no viable means of acquiring Kerway beyond Elven nature existed. Approximately 2,000 years before the fall of Atlantis, this limitation became the focus of what Atlantean records later named the Elven Project. The following material is not pleasant to examine, nor should it be. Yet avoidance serves no purpose. This is the shape of what awaits any people who covet power without restraint, and understanding it is essential to our survival. Study itself is not to be condemned. Curiosity and inquiry are the foundations of all knowledge. The Atlantean methods, however, must be deplored. Their earliest efforts proceeded under the guise of cooperation. Volunteers were sought. Unions between elves and humans were encouraged, for it was known that such pairings could produce viable offspring, yet the results proved consistently disappointing to Atlantean ambition. The Fea of those born from such unions remained wholly human in nature. It did not align readily with the Leylines, nor did it permit stable drawing of mana. Even in those rare individuals who displayed some aptitude, the Sama was so limited as to render meaningful practice impossible. Persistence, however, was the defining trait of the Atlantean endeavor. When cooperation failed, innovation followed. Their later methods abandoned restraint entirely. Through the combined application of elemental forces, structured light, harmonic sound, and complex machinery, they undertook processes designed to alter both parents and the unborn child. These interventions were prolonged, invasive, and profoundly unnatural. They reshaped the conditions under which Fea was formed. The results were catastrophic in number. Many subjects were left broken in mind or body. Others survived only briefly. Yet over time, the Atlanteans achieved their objective. They produced beings never before seen, humans whose Fea could draw mana directly from the Leylines. In these few successes, the Atlanteans found what they sought, a practitioner possessing the physical strength, aggression, and martial temperament of their own kind, endowed with Kerway equal to that of an elf, and in some cases surpassing it. This account is not intended as a full history of Atlantis, nor of the events that followed their final experiments. It is sufficient to note that the Atlantean Gambit did not end in mastery, but in catastrophe. Their attempts to meddle directly with the Leylines themselves shattered the balance they barely understood, and the cataclysm that followed erased their empire from the world. In the aftermath, The withdrawal of my people behind the veil denied those who survived any further access to elven methods, and in doing so forestalled all known efforts to repeat the gambit. This achievement marks the true beginning of the Atlantean Gambit. It is not merely an act of theft, but of transformation. The Curdway practiced by these beings differs radically from elven forms. Its structure, its expression, and its consequences diverge in ways that demand careful examination. These differences will be addressed in the chapters that follow. Though the blighted Leylines left in the wake of these events remain usable, they are no longer benign. Vigilance must now be maintained without end, for the currents shall house a corruption forevermore. We all know there is a darkness that hunts and watches through the Leylines, a blight upon the world. It moves without flesh and listens where it is not invited. I name it the Kraken, the fool king who doomed his own people and would doom mine if he could. I know you read this, creature. You may see these words, but you will never see my thoughts, nor walk my dreams. That way is shut to you. This kingdom is shut to you. No one shall ever pierce the veil while I still draw breath. You persist as hunger and echo. You coil through currents and sleep where vigilance thins. You whisper to ambition and call it destiny. I do not fear you, for fear grants purchase, and I offer none. You press hardest upon my people because they are aligned, because they listen, because they love the world you would consume. You haunt their rest, you sour their visions. You seek to hollow them until only your voice remains. You will fail. The veil stands. It stands because I stand, not in fury, not in despair, in vigilance, in patience, in love held longer than any darkness can endure. You will not cross its bounds in dream or waking. You will not whisper through its roots. You will not take what I guard. I do not strike at you. I bar the way. I keep the watch. I deny you the moment you require. Remain coiled. Remain waiting. That is all you will ever be. Chapter 6. A Double-Edged Methodology by Thalanor Quellethir, Chief Veilwarden of Velatasia. Human Elemental. Evocation. A Double-Edged Methodology. The preceding chapter noted that the structure and effects of human Curdway differ fundamentally from those of Elven practice, and that such differences require careful examination. That examination begins here. Where Elven Curdway acts primarily upon ambar and is mediated through the Fea, human practice engages directly with Ea. The human practitioner does not shape perception or guide harmony. Instead, they impose change upon the physical world, drawing power through their own flesh and blood. This distinction arises from the nature of the human Fea, which does not align with the Leylines in the manner of the Elven Fea. The precise cause of this divergence remains uncertain, though its consequences are unmistakable. The result is a form of Curdway that is forceful, immediate, and often violent in its expression. Humans tend naturally toward the manipulation of the elemental aspects of Ea: fire, water, earth, and air. In common speech, this is termed elementalism. In more precise study, it is known as evocation. These workings enact real and lasting change upon the world. Stone is shattered, flame is summoned, torrents of lightning are bent or broken. In this, human Curdway demonstrates that difference in structure does not imply lesser potency. The power at work is the same creative force, expressed through a different medium. Yet this power carries a severe cost. Unlike Elven practice, which strains the practitioner through sustained use, human evocation acts upon the practitioner at the moment of working. The elements answer not only the will of the human mage, but also their body. Fire scorches the flesh even as it is cast. Wind tears at the lungs. Stone fractures bone as readily as earth. Water draws heat and breath alike. The practice is inherently dangerous, and the practitioner bears the consequences of every working. Thus, the height of human evocation lies not in amplification, but in limitation. Mastery is found in controlling the degree to which the elements are allowed to answer. The most accomplished human evokers are not those who wield the greatest force, but those who endure with the least harm. Pain is constant, injury is expected. Longevity among such practitioners is rare. It is a regrettable consequence of the Atlantean Gambit that many humans born with the capacity for Kerway come to harm before understanding the nature of their own art. Untrained evocation often injures both the practitioner and those nearby. This pattern repeats across generations, a reflection of the brevity of human memory and the short span of their lives. Knowledge is rediscovered where it should have been inherited. Each generation pays again for lessons already learned. Human elemental evocation stands, therefore, as both testament and warning. It proves the breadth of creation's power and the danger of wielding it without harmony. The following sections examine each elemental discipline in turn. On fire as a
Chapter 6c. Destruction and Purification by Thalanor Quellethir, Chief Veilwarden of Velatasia. On fire as a destructive and purifying vector. Of all human elemental disciplines, fire evocation is the most immediately destructive and the least forgiving. Fire answers quickly and without subtlety. It manifests as heat, flame, and pressure, consuming fuel wherever it is found. The practitioner does not guide fire so much as unleash it, and the distinction is of critical importance. Human fire evocation draws mana through the body and releases it as thermal force. Flame is summoned at will, whether as focused jets, spreading sheets, or explosive bursts. The effects are unmistakable and permanent. Flesh chars, structures weaken. Air itself becomes hostile. Fire reshapes the battlefield faster than any other elemental art. The cost of this immediacy is severe. Fire does not discriminate between target and source. As it answers the mage's will, it also works upon the practitioner. Skin blisters, hair singes, lungs burn with every breath drawn near the working. Even brief use leaves marks. Scars upon the hands and forearms are common, and among seasoned practitioners they are considered inevitable. Most who attempt fire evocation perish before attaining mastery. Many die in their first uncontrolled workings. Others survive long enough to ignite a handful of enemies or structures before their bodies fail. Fire does not reward recklessness, and it does not permit gradual learning. Each attempt exacts payment immediately. Those rare individuals who endure long enough to master limitation rather than expansion become forces of terrible consequence. A true fire master does not merely ignite targets, they dominate space. Heat denial, smoke control, and the redirection of advancing flames allow them to shape entire battlefields. Armies break not from direct attack, but from exhaustion, suffocation, and fear. In the most extreme cases recorded, fire evokers altered the course of campaigns. Fields were rendered barren, strongholds were made uninhabitable. Entire regions burned long after the practitioner had withdrawn or died. Such events are rare, not for lack of destructive potential, but because so few survive long enough to wield it deliberately. Fire is sometimes spoken of as purifying. This is true only in the narrowest sense. It removes what existed before. What remains afterward is ash, ruin, and silence. The practitioner must therefore understand not only how to summon flame, but when its use is justified. Fire remembers nothing of restraint once released. Among all elemental disciplines, fire evocation offers the clearest lesson of human Kerway. Power drawn directly into Ie yields swift and overwhelming results, but it consumes the one who channels it with equal indifference. Only discipline and endurance delay the inevitable cost. Chapter 6b, Erosion and Control, by Thalanor Quellethir, Chief Veilwarden of Velatasia. On water as a medium of erosion and control. Water evocation appears, at first consideration, to be among the most practical of the human elemental disciplines. It can create, move, and alter water in ways that serve travel, construction, and war alike. Yet the practice carries a cost that is distinct even among human arts. Water draws payment from within. Many practitioners report weakness and dizziness within moments of working. In a significant number of cases, the body yields blood as readily as it yields mana. This is not merely incidental injury, it is characteristic of the discipline. Untrained evokers often manage only a few gallons of summoned or displaced water before faintness forces cessation. Despite this limitation, water evocation possesses an unsettling advantage. The bodies of living beings contain water in abundance. Flesh holds it, blood carries it. The organs depend upon it. Thus, the practitioner who learns to manipulate water does not merely command rivers and rain. They threaten the most intimate structures of life. In this discipline, effectiveness tends to increase as distance decreases. At range, water may be used to obscure sight, to hamper movement, or to erode defenses over time. At close proximity, it becomes a weapon of immediate and catastrophic consequence. Few arts are more lethal than the touch of a hostile water evoker who has attained true mastery, for the working may be applied directly to what the enemy is made of. Accounts from the height of Atlantis record the deliberate cultivation of such practitioners as instruments of assassination. These water-casters were trained as exceptional warriors, yet their primary function was not battlefield engagement. It was pursuit. Bound by personal vows of loyalty to the emperor, they were dispatched to hunt those deemed enemies of the state, whether within the capital or beyond its borders. Their methods were consistent. They approached under concealment, using mist and fog to veil their movement, to silence alarm, and to reduce a target's confidence in their own senses. Once within reach, the working required little display. A brief touch, described by witnesses as no more than a caress, was sufficient. The results, where recorded at all, were not survivable. A body was reduced to ruin with such speed that those nearby often failed to understand what had occurred until the evoker had already withdrawn. Water is therefore both tool and threat. It shapes the land through erosion. It governs the living through blood. In the hands of a disciplined practitioner, it offers extraordinary control. In the hands of the ruthless, it becomes a near-perfect means of quiet destruction. Let the reader understand this clearly. Water evocation does not merely move a substance. It reaches toward the boundary at which the body becomes vulnerable to Kerway itself. Chapter 6c, Structure, Bearing, and Fracture, by Thalanor Quellethir, Chief Veilwarden of Velatasia. On Earth as a structure-bearing and cracking conduit. Among the elemental disciplines practiced by humans, Earth evocation is the most enduring and the most physically demanding. Where fire consumes and air scatters, Earth resists. It bears weight, it remembers pressure. To command it is to contend with inertia itself. Human Earth evocation operates through direct engagement with matter. The practitioner does not persuade stone, but compels it. Mana is drawn into the body and forced outward into soil, rock, and worked structures alike. Through this process, earth may be shaped, reinforced, fractured, or collapsed. Walls may rise where none stood. Roads may be leveled or broken. Foundations may be weakened with terrifying efficiency. In all such workings, the change enacted is real and lasting. In peaceful application, earth evocation has been used for construction and excavation. Stone may be guided into place without tools. Earth may be compacted to bear greater loads. Faults within rock may be sensed and stabilized. These uses, when carefully limited, can rival the work of many hands and many years. Yet even here the danger remains, for the strain upon the practitioner is constant. Earth answers slowly, but it answers heavily. In destructive application, the art reveals its true nature. Earth evocation does not merely shatter, it undermines. A skilled practitioner may cause walls to sag, towers to lean, and fortifications to fail not through impact, but through loss of support. The ground itself becomes hostile. Such workings are difficult to counter, for they do not rely upon surface force, but upon the betrayal of what lies beneath. The toll upon the human body is severe. Bones ache and stiffen as mana courses through them. Joints grind as though packed with grit. The lungs labor as if drawing breath through dust and ash. Prolonged workings may leave lasting injury. Those who persist too long often lose mobility, breath, or consciousness. Earth evocation demands endurance above all else, and even endurance has limits. The most extreme expression of this discipline arose in the final centuries of Atlantis, when earth evocation was married to engineering in the form of the war golem suits. These constructions stand as both the height of the art and its most damning example. Forged from stacked granite plates and basalt columns, each suit was built around a simple internal frame of steel and hinged supports. When inert, the structure could barely support its own weight. Only through continuous evocation did it remain mobile. Within a ribcage-like chamber, the mage stood enclosed in steel, hands bound to stone nodes through which mana was driven into the surrounding mass. In siege warfare, these constructs were devastating. Their bulk allowed them to approach fortifications with impunity. Once close, the mage could extend their working outward, causing foundations to crack and collapse beneath walls that had stood for generations. In open combat, the suits functioned as living battering rams, scattering ranks through weight alone. The cost to the pilot was extreme. To animate such mass required sustained output beyond what most humans could endure. Many collapsed within minutes. Some never recovered. Among Atlanteans, mastery of earth evocation came to be measured not by power alone, but by how long one could remain standing within the golem before the body failed. That such devices were ever conceived stands as testament to human ingenuity and to the peril of unrestrained ambition. Earth will answer the call of Kerwe, but it exacts payment in kind. It grants strength by borrowing it from the one who commands it. In the chapters that follow, further elemental disciplines will be examined. None demonstrate more clearly than earth evocation that power drawn directly into Ie cannot be separated from the flesh that channels.
Chapter 6e, Transmission and Disruption, by Thalanor Quellethir, Chief Veilwarden of Velatasia. On air as a force of transmission and disruption. Air evocation is the most flexible of the human elemental disciplines, and the least immediately visible. Where fire announces itself and earth resists openly, air alters conditions rather than structures.
Its workings are defined by movement, pressure, and transmission, and its effects often manifest before an observer realizes that a working has begun. At its simplest, air evocation produces gusts of controlled force. These may be broad, sweeping currents, capable of driving back formations or dispersing smoke, or narrow jets of compressed air focused with sufficient precision to pierce flesh. Practitioners may deflect incoming missiles, redirect arrows, or extend their range far beyond mundane limits. With greater control, pockets of air may be collapsed suddenly, producing concussive force accompanied by deafening sound. More advanced applications include the manipulation of pressure gradients across a battlefield. Enemies may find their footing compromised. Breath may be stolen from the lungs. Sound may be carried unnaturally far or suppressed entirely. Signals may be distorted. Orders may fail to reach those who need them. In this way, air evocation excels not merely at harm, but at disruption. The cost to the practitioner is severe and specific. Air answers through the breath, and it exacts payment in kind. Repeated workings inflame the lungs and strain the muscles of respiration. Coughing blood is common. Many practitioners cannot sustain prolonged exertion without assistance. It is not unusual for air evokers to be borne to and from battle upon litters, having spent their strength shaping the field rather than fighting upon it directly. For this reason, most air practitioners are not warriors in the conventional sense. They rely upon escorts and positioning rather than armor or strength. Despite this fragility, their value is beyond dispute. A single skilled evoker may alter the course of an engagement without ever striking a blow. Records from the height of Atlantis describe the specialized order known as the Thunder Mages. These practitioners manipulated air between cloud and ground, adjusting pressure and charge until conditions permitted the descent of lightning. They were deployed as precision instruments rather than massed forces, tasked with eliminating enemy commanders, champions, and siege engines. Thunder Mages were often mounted upon flying griffins, granting them unparalleled vantage and mobility. From above, they guided storms with deliberate care, calling thunder down upon chosen targets before withdrawing beyond retaliation. Contemporary accounts claim that the most accomplished among them could conjure lightning even beneath clear skies, though such assertions remain difficult to verify. Air evocation thus occupies a unique position among the elemental disciplines. It rewards precision over endurance and strategy over spectacle. Yet like all human curway, it demands sacrifice. Each breath taken in service of the art brings the practitioner closer to silence. The air remembers every command given to it. Chapter 7 by Thalanor Quellethir, Chief Veilwarden of Velatasia. The Curiosity of Human Antimagic. Human anti-magic is a phenomenon new to the world and thus studied with particular intensity wherever it can be safely observed. It was vanishingly rare 1,500 years ago and only began to appear in notable numbers approximately 1,000 years past. Even now, its consistent manifestation appears confined to a single tradition. The ability has been reliably reproduced only among members of the cult of Sol Eternel, specifically its priesthood and the militant order of the same name. These individuals employ their abilities not defensively, but actively, seeking out and hunting humans who are magically attuned. Their activities are deliberate, organized, and sustained. The functional method of this art stands apart from all known disciplines. Anti-magic does not involve the cultivation of mana from Leylines. Instead, practitioners draw mana directly from other beings. This previously unrecorded method has the effect of halting or severely limiting the curway of those within proximity. The loss is felt immediately and unmistakably by those affected. An element of deft control appears to occur while they use this art. This control is instant and deft, limiting to the exact amount they need across whichever person in their vicinity they wish. Notably, these practitioners do not retain the mana they drain, nor do they employ it for their own curway. Indeed, they regard such use as abhorrent. Instead, the mana is allowed to pass through them and dissipate. Through this mechanism, an anti-mage of low Sama may suppress or exhaust several practitioners of significantly higher Sama simultaneously. Once their targets are thus weakened, anti-mages have typically engaged by mundane means. In this they demonstrate a level of discipline and martial competence that suggests extensive training. Many encounters have ended not through contest of art, but through conventional violence enacted against those suddenly deprived of their defenses. The transfer itself is perceptible and has been observed directly by Elven wardens. As to the deeper methodology, little has been learned. Antimages do not intone, chant, or meditate as other practitioners do. The only explanation offered by one such individual was that they act in accordance with the will of Sol Eternel, and that obedience is the source of their ability. Though some have been observed what we believe to be silent prayer during a particularly prolonged application of antimagic against a powerful foe. I was inclined to dismiss this explanation outright, yet no trace of an external leyline, presence or force has been detected within the circles of the world, nor beyond them where Sol Eternel is claimed to reside. Whether this represents ignorance on our part or deliberate obfuscation remains unresolved. I leave the pursuit of this question and the broader history of the Order itself to future generations, as it lies beyond the scope of this work. To the Wardens of Velatasia, I offer this counsel. Exercise extreme caution when dealing with antimages. They are capable of stripping illusions without effort and possess wills of uncommon strength. Though they claim no hostility toward elven arts, only toward those of men, prudence demands preparation for harm rather than trust in stated intention. Chapter 7, Section A. Under Antimagic Constraints by Thalanor Quellethir, Chief Veilwarden of Velatasia. Suspen. Human-Derived Healing and Predictive Discipline. Under Antimagic Constraints. Within lands governed by the Ruestrian Empire and, by extension, the authority of the Order of Sol Eternel, most magical practices are formally forbidden. Exceptions are granted only through writs of indulgence, and among these few allowances the healing arts occupy a singular position. Such arts were known in Atlantis before its fall, though they were rarely observed beyond its borders and were largely lost in the collapse that followed. What has re-emerged in the present age bears only partial resemblance to those earlier forms, shaped as much by constraint as by tradition. The healing magics now encountered are most commonly practiced by members of the Order of Sol Elevia. Their workings act directly upon Ea, closing wounds and restoring bodily integrity with immediacy that is striking even to elven observers. Flesh knits. Blood ceases to flow. The visible transformation is often dramatic. Yet these practitioners rarely possess great sama. Their capacity to heal is therefore limited in scope and duration. The cost they bear is also severe. Injuries analogous to those they mend frequently appear upon the healer's own body. Though many are able to restore more than they suffer, the exchange imposes a hard boundary upon what any one individual can endure. As a result, current practice favors triage over restoration. Healers intervene to prevent immediate death, stabilize the gravely wounded, and then withdraw to recover.
In the most critical cases, chains of practitioners may be employed, allowing a chief healer to halt mortal injury while distributing the strain across several bodies rather than one. The predictive disciplines under anti-magic constraint are even more limited and are practiced only rarely. Where they exist, they rely upon fleeting impressions rather than sustained augury, and their accuracy is correspondingly diminished. The suppression of mana renders prolonged foresight impractical. It may be possible, with sufficient discretion, to persuade the Order of Sol Elevia to cooperate with our own healers, if only on a provisional basis. The combined application of arts acting upon ear and those acting upon fear should not be underestimated. Even where magic is officially prescribed, necessity remains. We will not permit the fear born of another Elven project to blind us to the potential of cooperation in this singular domain. To heal both body and spirit is not ambition. It is preservation. The mystery of human predictive disciplines. More troubling still is a phenomenon that defies even the limited explanatory frameworks available to us. Among the cult of Sol Eternal, there exist humans capable of genuine predictive disciplines. Some demonstrate rudimentary augury. Others exhibit abilities that extend far beyond what should be possible under anti-magic constraint. Unlike human elemental evocation, which operates upon ear, and unlike Elven predictive arts, which act through Kerway upon ambar, these practices appear to function without any measurable engagement with either structure. The absence of working Kerway within ambar should render true foresight impossible. At best, one would expect fleeting intuition or coincidence. Yet repeated trials have demonstrated accuracy well beyond chance. These individuals, referred to by the cult as seers, are able to perceive future events with unsettling consistency. Their results have been tested, constrained, and verified. No invocation, meditation, or mana flow has been detected. No leyline interaction has been observed. The effect persists even within strong anti-magic fields. Where human anti-magic is perplexing in execution, yet intelligible in principle, this predictive capacity admits neither clarity nor precedent. It should not exist. That it does forces the conclusion that our understanding of foresight, and perhaps of causality itself, remains incomplete. As with anti-magic, the practitioners attribute their ability solely to obedience to Sol Eternal. No further explanation has ever been offered. On one occasion, when pressed for clarification by a member of the Order, I received only this response: "Not everything is in your books, Elf." Indeed, I record the phenomenon. I acknowledge the evidence. I do not explain it. This riddle I leave to future generations, for I find my patience for it is exhausted.
Epilogue on the Incompleteness of All Arcane Systems by Thalanor Quellethir, Chief Veilwarden of Velatasia. No work that concerns itself with the arts may conclude with certainty. Knowledge advances unevenly, and understanding follows only after patience, failure, and restraint. What has been recorded in these pages represents not a complete account of the arcane, but the limits of what may be responsibly known at this time. The histories examined here demonstrate a consistent truth. Power pursued without humility brings ruin. The fall of Atlantis did not arise from ignorance alone, but from the belief that mastery implied entitlement. Kerway was treated as possession rather than responsibility. The world responded accordingly. To understand the arts is not to dominate them. To catalogue their effects is not to justify their use. Wisdom lies not in how much may be done, but in knowing when restraint is required. This lesson bears repeating, for it is easily forgotten by those who glimpse power and mistake it for destiny. Much remains unresolved. Human anti-magic defies established structure. Human predictive disciplines persist where they should not. The deeper nature of human fear remains obscure. These are not failures of observation, but reminders that the world is older, broader, and less orderly than our models allow. Yet ignorance is not an argument for fear. Humans must be permitted to learn, just as elves once did, through careful study rather than ambition. Knowledge denied does not vanish. It merely re-emerges in less disciplined hands. If the wounds of the past are to be healed, understanding must proceed without hunger for dominion. For my own part, I will set aside formal research. My remaining years shall be given wholly to the charge I have long borne. I will stand as Veilwarden, anchoring what must be held, guarding what must be protected, and enduring what must be endured. My confidence rests not in systems or theories, but in those who come after me. They will see more than I have seen. They will correct my errors. They will mend what was broken before their time. Until they are ready to meet the world without repeating its gravest mistakes, I will hold the veil. This is my final contribution to the record. What follows belongs to you.